guys, we're going to start on chapter 10. We've got a high chair here. Let's see what's going to happen. Lolly was a lumpy old woman who spoke too loudly and wore too much lipstick. She entered the house and immediately spotted Edward sitting on the couch. "What's this?" she said. She put her suitcase down and picked up Edward by one foot. She held him upside down. "That's Susanna," said Nellie. "Susanna?" shouted Lolly. She gave Edward a shake. His dress was up over his head and he could see nothing. Already, he had formed a deep and abiding hatred for Lolly. "Your father found her," said Nellie. "She came up in a net and she didn't have on no clothes, so I made some dresses for her." "Have you gone skivvy?" shouted Lolly. "Rabbits don't need clothes." "Well," said Nellie, her voice shook. "This one seemed to." Lolly tossed Edward back on the couch. He landed face down with his arms over his head and his dress over his face. He stayed that way through dinner. "Why have you got out this old high chair?" Lolly said. "Oh, don't pay it no mind," Nellie said. "Your father was just gluing a missing piece, weren't you, Lawrence?" That's right," said Lawrence, not looking up from his dinner plate. Of course, after dinner, Edward did not go outside and stand beneath the stars to go have his pipe. And Nellie, for the first time since Edward was with them, did not sing him a lullaby. In fact, Edward was ignored and forgotten about until the next morning. That was when Lolly picked him up and stared at him in the eye. "Got the old folks bewitched, don't ya?" said Lolly. "I heard the town talking. They've been treating you like a child." Edward stared back at Lolly. Her lipstick was bright and bloody red. He felt a cold breeze blow through the room. Was there a door open somewhere? "Well, you don't fool me," she said. She gave him a shake. "We'll be taking a trip together, me and you." Holding Edward by the ears, Lolly marched into the kitchen and shoved him face down into the garbage can. "Mom," Lolly shouted, "I'm taking the truck. I'm going to head out and run some errands." "Oh," came Nellie's tremulous voice. "That's wonderful. Goodbye." "Goodbye," Nellie called again, louder this time. Edward felt a sharp pain somewhere deep inside his china chest. For the first time, his heart called out to him. It said two words: Nellie, Lawrence. Chapter 11. Edward ended up at the dump. He laid on top of orange peels, coffee grounds, rancid bacon, and rubber tires. The first night, he was at the top of the garbage heap, so he was able to look up at the stars and find comfort in their light. In the morning, a short man came climbing through the trash and rubble. He stopped when he was standing on top of the highest pile. He put his hands underneath his armpits and flapped his elbows. The man crowed loudly. "Who am I? I'm Ernest, who is king of the world. How can I be king of the world? Because I am the king of garbage, and garbage is what the world is made of. Ha, ha, ha. Therefore, I am Ernest, who is king of the world." Edward was inclined to agree with Ernest's assessment of the world being made of garbage, especially after his second day at the dump, when a load of trash was directly dumped on top of him. He laid there, buried alive. He could not see the sky. He could not see the stars. He could see nothing. What kept Edward going, what gave him hope, was thinking of how he would find Lolly and exact his revenge. He would pick her up by her ears. He would bury her under a mountain of trash. But after almost 40 days and 40 nights, the weight and the smell of garbage began to cloud Edward's thoughts. And soon, he gave up thinking about revenge, gave into despair. It was much worse. This was so much worse than being buried at sea. It was worse because Edward was a different rabbit now. He couldn't say how he was different. He just knew that he was different. He remembered again how Pellegrina's story about the princess who had loved nobody, the witch turned her into a warthog because she loved nobody. He understood that now. He heard Pellegrina tell him, "You disappoint me." Why? He wanted to ask her, "Why do I disappoint you? What did I do to disappoint you?" But he knew the answer to that question too. It was because he had not loved Abilene enough, and now she was gone from him, and he would never be able to make it right. And Nellie and Lawrence were gone too. He missed them terribly. He wanted them to be there. The rabbit wondered, is this love? Day after day passed. Edward was aware of the time passing because every morning he could hear Ernest, the king of garbage, performing his ritual. cackling and crowing about being the king. On his 180th day at the dump, salvation arrived for Edward in a most unusual form. The garbage around him shifted, and the rabbit heard sniffing and panting. Then came sounds of digging. The garbage shifted again, and suddenly a beautiful buttery light of late afternoon shone on Edward's face. So what do you guys think was panting, digging, and sniffing Edward out of the trash? Let me know in the comments.